to you all to the Commerce Positivity lecture. Well, in today's lecture, we will be totally discussing about the importance of communications, principle that actually guide the communications, means the principle of communications, and the problem or the barriers to an effective communication. So let's start with the importance of communications. So, the importance of communications. Well, communication is essential to get mutual understanding. It helps to achieve the mutual confidence. Lack of effective communications may lead to misunderstanding in an organization. Therefore, communication is essential. The first importance of communications here we have is that efficient operations. Yes, communication is necessary for the efficient and smooth operations of the organizations. Managerial order, instructions, and the feedback of the employers are exchanged through the communications. It is impossible to exchange such feedback without communications. It also enables the subordinates to understand their job and responsibility clearly. Therefore, efficient operations of an organizational activities require continuous and effective communications. Basis of planning is another importance of communications. Well, communication is thinking before doing any job. Information is essential for planning, which can be achieved from internal and external source that may be used as future reference. Communications facilitates to prepare target, standard, and instructions for future plan. Therefore, communications can be used as a basis of better planning. Similarly, another important here we have is that years in decisions making. Yes, of course, decisions making is a process. Yeah, it is a process of solving the problem through selecting the best course of actions. Selections of alternative requires informations, data, facts, figures, and other various reports. The informations can be achieved only with the help of communications. Hence, communications assist for effective decisions making. Facilities for control is another importance of communications. Control is a comparison. Yeah, it's a comparison or measurement of actual work with the standard work set by the management to correct the deviations in future. Establishment of standard and target are based on effective communications. Communications helps to set standard and the target, hence controlling or control facilitates by effective communications. Improving direction is another important. Directions involve the process. Yeah, it involves the process of providing the guidelines, instructions, orders, and methods to the workers to operate the job. It needs interactions between superior and subordinates in an organization. Communications improve the directions, face-to-face and two-way communications. Both are used to facilitate better and effective directions within an organization. Similarly, another important here we have is that effective coordinations. Yes, of course, establishment of causal relationship or the best relationship between managers, worker and the department is known as coordinations. It requires the exchange of a feeling, problem, ideas, informations, etc. between two or more members. Hence, communication is essential to make effective coordinations. Okay, now another important here we have is that productivity and economy. Yeah, productivity and economy is another importance of communications. Yes, of course, effective communications coordinates the various factors of productions which enables maximum output. Similarly, it helps to utilize the resources in the best possible manner through eliminating the wastage. Therefore, communications helps to achieve productivity and economy in operations. Yeah, now let's study about the principle of communications. What are the principle or guideline that should be followed for the effective communications? The first principle here we have is that principle of clarity. Yes, of course, the message which ought to be transmitted should always be easy and understandable so that the receiver may interpret the idea in the same sense as seen by the sender. There should not be any disturbance. The words do not speak themselves, but the speaker gives them the meaning. Similarly, another principle here we have is that principle of attention. Yes, the communication system should always able to draw the attention of the receiver, the behavior, sentiments, and emotions used by the senders determine the degree of attention of the receiver. A good manager has to decide the time of communications. The decisions of time helps him in reducing the effective of the emotions and mood of the receiver. Principle of consistency is another principle of effective communications. According to this principle implements that communication should be consistent with the plan, objective, policies, and the program of the organizations. Inconsistent communications always create confusions among the employees of the organizations. Similarly, another principle here we have is that principle of adequacy. Yes, of course, the communication should be adequate and complete in all respect. Incomplete and inadequate communications delay actions and destroy understanding and relationship within an organization. It affects the efficiency of sender and his communications. Principle of timeliness is another important principle of effective communications. The communication should be always made at the proper time. Any delay in the communications lose their importance and effectiveness. Delay in communications will serve no purpose except to make them mere historical documents. Principle of integration is another important principle. Well, this principle says that the communication should promote cooperations among the people at work to achieve the organizational objective. It is possible only when individual objectives are integrated with the organizational objective in an organization. Similarly, the last principle here we have is that principle of feedback. Yes, of course, this principle is most important principle of an effective communication system. The communications must have feedback from the receiver, whether their messages have been understood in the same sense in which sender take it. Now, let's study about the barriers to effective communications. What are the barriers that makes problem in effective communications? Well, communication is not successful in many cases. There are some obstacles to achieve its efficiency and effectiveness in an organization. The first barrier here we have is that organizational barrier or organization barrier. Well, the classical organization structure with a scalar chain of command restrict free and frequent communications in an organization. Each manager receives informations only from one source and transmit the message to another single level. If there are too many levels in an organization, then it will be difficult to pass the correct informations to the right persons at the right time through the right medium. Okay, now another barrier here we have is that status barrier. Yes, of course, the persons with higher status do not talk freely to the peoples with lower status in an organization. Subordinates do not like to feel free to talk to their superior. They pass on only what superior would like to hear and hold back unpleasant facts. This makes less effective communications and create barriers in effective communications in an organization. Similarly, another barrier we have is that semantic barrier. The word and symbol used in communications process may mean different things to different persons. People interpret the same informations in different ways depending upon their social background, knowledge, education, and experience. For instance, profit may mean one thing to the manager, whereas another to the workers. Similarly, inattention barrier is another important barriers of effective communications. The communications becomes ineffective when the receiver does not pay complete attention toward the message. The receiver may be preoccupied with other more important matters. The ignorance of receiver may make the communications ineffective in an organization. Similarly, perpetual barriers is another important barriers of an effective communications. Each and every organization or each and every individual has a specific areas of interest. The individual concentrates only on the message which is valuable to him. Some persons may have different perceptions on the message in terms of their interest and value. Thus, perceptions leads to filter the message unconsciously. Overload of information is another barrier to effective communications. Managers are overloaded from the various sources of information. The manager must be up to date to use and regulate the flow of information. They may ignore or misinterpret the information while making the managerial decisions. Similarly, premature barrier is another important barriers to effective communications. The communication is not effective when the receiver evaluates the message before getting the complete information. In such a case, he or she does not have an open mind. He or she comes to the final conclusion without logical assumptions from the objective and the situations. The last barrier here we have is that channel alternations. Yes, of course, physical and mechanical barriers may also cause alternations of communications. Ineditable telephones, electronic disturbance, wrong transcriptions in text message, noise, etc. are the major barriers for effective communications. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just hope you all understand the importance of communications, principle of communications, barriers to effective communications. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Take care. Stay safe.